do begin a new message series from the letter to the Hebrews. The letter to the Hebrews. The epistle is called the letter to the Hebrews, even though the superscription to the Hebrews, letter to the Hebrews, you won't find that in any of the texts. In fact, most for you theologians, don't believe that this was a letter at all in the traditional sense. There's no to, there's no from, but if you go to the 13th chapter, and we'll get there one day, don't know when that day will be, but we'll get there, you'll get a kind of a close, a salutation, a reference to Timothy. But the letter was referenced by, I believe it was Clement of Rome in the late 1st century. And it's likely through the 2nd and the 3rd century that the letter to the Hebrews gained the title, if you will, the letter to the Hebrews. Theologians believe that it was written to an urban ministry, an urban house church, probably in Rome, probably. And it was probably written by one of the leaders of that house church. Many have, and I'm not suggesting you do, deacons, a dissertation on the why, the from, and to whom of the letter to the Hebrews. You could do a doctoral dissertation on just this, and many have. You don't have to worry. I'm just giving you a little bit. This is not that, but ours is to carefully walk through the text and to see the points of application to us. Even though we weren't in a first century house church in Rome or some urban setting, and most of us aren't Jewish. So that this is not the time for us to check out, it's to check in. The early church leaders wrestled with the books, the canon. I so appreciate what they did. I heard Pastor Campbell say similar words years ago about how, be it Tertullian or Clement or different ones, that names you may or may not ring familiar, that had this information that was being shared and passed around and sent around. And lo and behold, 2 millennia later, we have this aggregation of material we call the Bible, that we think that it was, some guy just sat down and by candlelight and wrote it all. God, in his mystery and his wonder, took not the musings, but the works, the Holy Spirit inspired works of the writers, and got it to something that we play with it. We play fast and loose with it, and don't understand or appreciate the struggle and the all of that behind the writing. 1st century folk in an urban setting. What am I saying? It's generally settled that it was written to the Jewish audience, new Jewish Christians, because as we'll read through the text, we'll see the emphasis on Jewish theology and Jewish history and temple activities. rituals, all of that, and trying to encourage this group, or to put it another way, as I've shared kind of in a roundabout way, its content preceded or determined its title. The content determined its title. The content, you look at the content and it's like, okay, well, what should we name it? We should name it Hebrews, or Letter to the Hebrews, because the content determined what the title was. You've heard me say before, I'll say it again, about the attribution, the observation that a minister had about Sister Meeks, and said, pulled me aside and said, you know, she was a minister's wife before she was a minister's wife. That the content preceded the observed person in the title. I'm amazed how often we twist ourselves in spiritual and otherwise knots to defend or define the spirituality of either ourselves or others. We'll project on folks, and it's like, well, I think they're Christian. Well, why do you think? I mean, it's like, what about them or ourselves, for that matter, who we are, who we really are, who I really am, will ultimately be borne out by the living out of my faith. Not by what I think, not what I hope, not what I wish were so. It will be borne out by the living out of my faith. So in the weeks and the months to come, we'll see that indeed the case that the audience was first century Jewish Christians. But that doesn't mean, since we didn't live in the first century, we're not Jewish mostly. On the contrary, we can see and learn. What we tend to too often do is skip over. We'll get through maybe the 3rd chapter of Genesis, and then let's hurry up and get to Matthew, because that's where the good stuff is. And we fail to recognize all of the material. It's not filler material. It's material that it is history, it is information that is necessary in order for us to fully understand and appreciate the gospel. There was over the holidays, we had the opportunity to go see a movie, cartoon at the theaters with some of our grandkids from Southern California. But I don't know why I should be surprised. But again, for those of you who go to movies on the regular, Sister Meeks reminds me, she always does, it's like you can be 30 to 60 minutes late and you will not miss the movie, because it's filled with not prequel stuff, it's just unrelated advertisement. It's got nothing to do with the movie. It's got everything to do with to get you out of your chair and go buy some popcorn and soda. And interlaced with some preview of some movie that you probably won't see or wouldn't want to see. This is not the Old Testament. It's not unrelated advertisement. It is stuff that allows us to see clearly who Jesus is. Think of it this way. The letter to the Hebrews will serve as an opportunity for course correction for those of us that missed the point of the religious behavior and relationship God intended in the first 39 books. That's why, and again, we only have 4 verses, so don't you guys just like, well, we haven't even seen one verse now. It's getting kind of late, Pastor, and I do have lunch reservations. I hear you, and I hear your stomach. So it was necessary then and it's necessary now to explain how we got to where we're at. No attempt at religious trying will get us in right relationship with God. No, I don't care how much you try. Again, I hear Mick Jagger. You can try, you can try, you can try. You will not get no satisfaction, spiritual or otherwise. Trying to do the religious right thing, because you're going to fail more than once. Written to first century Jewish Christians. Y'all need to understand Deuteronomy 7. Again, I picked you, Jewish nation, because I picked you. I picked you because I picked you. There was nothing special about you. You weren't the smartest, you weren't the brightest, you weren't the top of the class. I picked you. Why did you pick them? Because I'm God and I can pick who I pick. That's just the way it is. And before we think to one way or the other about Deuteronomy 7, there's nothing particularly pretty or special about me either, or you. God, in his infinite wisdom, allowed us to enter into that relationship with him. So the letter is an effort to the audience to ensure that they had a firm understanding of and for their faith. Why? Because things were getting ready to get real. They were tough then, and they were ready to get tougher. Doesn't that sound familiar? Things were tough. This is the timing of the letter. Things were bad, and they didn't know it was getting ready to be a whole lot worse. And so I've got all of this baked in generational history, that religious history that caused me to lean one way. And now, if I'm not careful, I might slip into that or something altogether different, because things are getting really rocky. And I don't know if what I'm holding on to is really what I should be holding on to. Yeah? Is this really, I'm drowning, is this really a flotation device? I like how one theologian put it. He said, the purpose of Hebrews is to strengthen, encourage, and exhort the tried and weary members of a house church to respond with courage and vitality to the prospect of renewed suffering in view of the gifts and resources God has lavished upon them. The writer's intention is to address the sagging faith of men and women within the group and to remind them of their responsibility to live actively in response to God's absolute claim upon their lives through the gospel. He urges his listeners to hold loyally to their confession of Jesus Christ as the sole mediator of salvation in a time of crisis, and warns them of judgment of God they would incur if they should renounce their Christian commitment. Boy, doesn't that ring true. I hear you, Pastor. I hear you. I hear you. I hear you. I was hoping for a New Year's message on how to make me a little bit happier, cheerier, how we're going to make a few more bucks in 2026, and all my kids are going to be fine and dandy. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. You won't get that from the letter to the Hebrews, and you won't get that in the Bible, and you're not going to get it from me. You can get, everything's on YouTube. If you want that, you can find that on YouTube. You can find those that are focusing on prosperity. They're focusing on, you just need a little bit more Jesus, and then your brother won't pass away. See, that's the reason for that. And if you and if you had a little more Jesus, you wouldn't be laid off. That's what this is about. You know, it's a better hyped up version of Aladdin's lamp. You know, God is, give me a wish. Give me a wish. Give me a wish. But today, as I shared, just 4 verses. Verse 1, in the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. Again, it's not the first century format for letters. There's no to, there's no from. And again, what many theologians suggest, you're looking at a sermon. You're looking at a message. You're looking at someone from this house church congregation writing to the congregation saying, hang in there. And this is why you hang in there. And I'm going to give you information by which you can hang in there. Again, you could do your dissertation on the letter, but you probably have other things to do with your time. The author says that God communicated with his people in polymeros and polytropos. That's it for the Greek. And you won't even remember that, I'm sure. Polymeros and polytropos. Literally, in many pieces and in many ways. That's what the NIV translates many times in many ways. I'm amazed, as I said before, I'm amazed at the mysteries and the mystery that is of God. But think of it like this. It's like for those of y'all who have got diamonds and facets and all those shiny things and all the cuts and all that stuff. It's like a gem with facets. Polymeros gives a more complex offering of how God chose to reveal himself. There's a kaleidoscope. Same tube with the pieces of plastic in there. If you twist it one way, you'll get an image. You twist it another way, you get another image. You twist it another way, you get another image. For those of you who know what kaleidoscopes are. But it's the same tube, the same pieces of plastic, same content, but it's beautiful pieces that tell the story in a slightly different way. And I know you might be compelled, like me. It's like, well, that's interesting, God. Why did you choose to do it that way? Why didn't you let's just get it over with. Let's just reveal it all at once and let's just do this thing. Well, Genesis 1:1. He did that. And your ancestor messed it up. Oh, you're saying Adam and Eve screwed it up? Yeah, and if I were there, I'd have had a lemonade stand and selling wings and everything else. It would have been a hot mess. So I don't blame them. They are a stand-in for us. We would have messed it up. But wonderfully, beautifully, God uses the first family's choice to reveal himself in a more full and complete way. I met Sister Meeks November 22nd, 1997. We go to nothing but the best places, Floyd. The PERS cafeteria, the Public Employees Retirement System cafeteria. She had a salad. I don't know what I had. Wasn't important. She was important. But that was the first cut. That was the first facet. And I knew something about her there. On our first real date at Scott's Seafood, I made the mistake of diving into her plate twice. And she corrected me very quickly. and I knew her a different way. On May 15th, 1999, when we said I do, I knew her a different way. When in 2021, I laid to rest my daughter, I knew her in a different way. In 2024, as she walked through her health journey, I knew her in a different way. What are you saying? Each opportunity revealed an aspect of relationship that I didn't know, and I would not have appreciated if I were standing at a fire hydrant and said, open it up and give it to me all at once. I'm on this side of eternity. I'm flawed. I'm sinful. With men, you have to tell us more than once, and you have to tell us in different ways. And at some point, hopefully, it kicks in. But at each stage, at each event, each encounter, each response, in many pieces and in many ways, I have gained a fuller understanding of Gail. And we have become more aware of one another. But again, I'm on this side of eternity, and I'm created. I'm not the creator. I'm flawed, less so with Sister Meeks. But our knowledge of each other is limited and only goes so far. There are some things about me she does not know and will never know. There are some things about her I don't know and will never know. But that's why I love God so much, that he bridged my sinful inclinations and my sinful limitations, and he ended the harmony of heaven for me. He ended the harmony of heaven for me and for you. As the Nicene Creed says in part, light of light, true God of true God, begotten, not made, of one essence. God, I get ahead of myself. The writer wastes no time opening up with this bold, in the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways, in pieces, in piecemeal, little by little. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. See, now we know. Now we know. We are required to know, and with knowledge comes responsibility, and with responsibility comes the requirement to respond. I recall again Cyrus's New Year's message. I was listening, Cyrus. I was listening. He said as he was preparing, he was being convicted. That's what a relationship will do. As you look at a certain aspect, I didn't think about that. Oh, okay. I didn't know not to take one or two pieces of shrimp off of Sister Meeks' plate. I should have known. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Verse 3, we're almost done. I am closing. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. After he provided purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the majesty in heaven. So he became as much superior to the angels as the name he has inherited is superior to theirs. It's not obvious, But the writer uses a very important word to describe Christ, harakir. Well, I said there was only going to be one. There's two Greek words. Not something like God, not sort of God, not it looks like God, but not really God. It's the exact representation of God. It's a word that is used to describe how, particularly back in that, contemporary with the writing, if I wanted to make a coin of the image of the emperor, say, I would have to take hard metal and sculpt basically that mold. And that mold would reflect who the person is, not a sketch of a sketch, but a three-dimensional mold would be created. And I would use that mold to press upon softer metal to make not something that's sort of like, but no, it's exactly like the original. So, with all this detail and all this introduction from a 30,000 foot level, see, this is all just run up to put us to the point of, so what does this mean for us today? Well, first thing, there's three things and I'm done. First thing, God is sovereign and God is present. God is sovereign and God is present. Second, God has been faithfully at work across generations. God has been faithfully working across generations. I still recall vividly those times of seeing my father on his knees, bedside, praying. It's like I passed by your room and I saw you there praying an hour ago and you're still there. You're not asleep. I hear you. You're still, that God is working across generations. And third and finally, Jesus Christ is God's final and gracious word to us. And it's in him. We may have asked, it's like, boy, I'd sure like to know God. You want to know God? Know Christ. There's a lot written about Christ. You want to know God? Know Christ. It's the same God in the Old Testament is the same God in the New Testament. Well, in the Old Testament, I saw a whole lot of body parts and blood and killing and all. But with Jesus, it's like same God. That's why Hebrews is that letter, that sermon, that message that we can look at and it's like, okay, boy, I wish there was something that wove everything together. That's the letter to the Hebrews. That's why the one gentleman was saying, oh, you're going to walk through the letter to the Hebrews. Oh, boy, yeah, you didn't pick the easiest epistle to deal with. No, that's not the important. The intent is to grow us. And with knowledge comes responsibility. You cannot unknow what you know. You can ignore what you know, but you can't unknow. Well, and even ignorance of the law. You tell that to the CHP officer. I didn't know I'm sorry you didn't know that the speed limit was 70. I'm sorry. Here's your ticket. We are obligated to understand who God is. And we can know who God is through the person of his son, Jesus the Christ. And with that knowledge, then we are obligated to live and to move and to operate in a certain way. I didn't know. I'm sorry. Here's the space to know. And even if you didn't participate and didn't choose this space to know, you're still responsible for the content. Just is. I'm sorry. But they're not saying that on YouTube. That's why I say put down the phone, put down the computer, step away from that. There is nothing, I know there's something there. By and large, there's nothing good there. There's nothing good there, but we doom scroll through stuff. What are you doing? And he said, I can wear a dress that is justifiable. God help us. If you want answers that pander to what you want, it's on YouTube. If you want to know who God is, walk through the letter to the Hebrews.